Hi, this is tutorial number 3 for the mobile racing game template. In this video, I'll show you how to use the race template scene to create a new race scene. Let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I'll do is press Ctrl D with the race template selected to duplicate it, and then I'll rename it. Doing this lets me make changes to this new race scene without breaking the race template scene. That way I could reuse it for additional scenes. The first thing I'll do is zoom out a little bit. That way we can take a look at the environment. If I toggle this off, you can see that there's really nothing in the scene. So you're going to want to replace this environment with your own. And then one thing that I want to point out is that there is an object in the scene. It's just a simple plane. This object has a top-down screenshot of the track. So you'll just create a screenshot, bring it into Photoshop or your image editing software, crop it, and then replace the texture, and then scale the transform as needed. Now that the environment is out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. The scene has a race system and a couple other prefabs in it. We'll go over this a little later. The first thing we'll do is actually create some AI waypoint routes. I'll select Tools, TurnTheGameOn, Mobile Racing Game Template, Create. And then we have a spline route creator to create multiple AI routes at the same time. And this has a lot of useful settings and features to update the waypoints with specific settings. Or you can manually create AI waypoint routes, which is a little bit more labor intensive. So I'm going to use the spline route creator since I want more than one lane and I want it to configure a lot of the options for me. So the first thing I'll do is zoom in with the spline route creator selected, and I'll start placing points on the road. There's some information in the inspector if you'd like to read it. Basically, what it says is that when you update the spline, it's going to completely regenerate the routes. So you don't want to make any detailed changes on the routes or their waypoints until you're done with the spline route creator. And then there's some instructions that let you know how to place points. So you hold Shift and left click to place a spline point. So I'll just create a few points in the middle of the road. And you could also hold Control and Shift and left click to insert a point. Press Control Z to undo. At the end of the spline, there's a start and an end control point, which control the curvature. And as we place new points on the spline, that point will be adjusted in the forward direction automatically. I'm just going to go through this route and place spline points in the middle of the road. For the most part, I'm trying to make them evenly distributed, and I'll need to go under this bridge, and the shadows are a little dark here, so I'm going to toggle off the scene light so I could see a little bit better. Create some points around this bend, and I prefer to have the scene light on, so I'll put that back on. All right, and now I have a spline that's through the center of the road. So now I can use the spline route creator to generate some waypoint routes. The first thing I'll do is specify the number of routes I want. I'll put 5 on this spline and click refresh. We can see that the 5 routes did spawn. And if we look at each of these routes, they have a route index that matches their route number in their name. And this is going to be used to find a target route for the AI racers. We'll cover that shortly. The next thing we'll want to do, these routes currently only have 10 points. So let's increase that to about 100 and click refresh. Now we can see the points in our scene, and we do have some numbers over them so we can kind of reference what they are. And we'll get into that shortly too. Now, if we scroll down a little bit, we have some route offset options. Let's go ahead and set route 1 offset as -7. Route 2 offset will be -3.5. Route 3 will be in the middle, so we're going to leave that at 0. And then 4 will be +3, and 5 will be +7. So each of these routes will be offset 3.5 meters from each other. I'll scroll up and click refresh again. I'm actually going to move this console out of the way so I can view the complete inspector. Now, if we zoom in on these waypoints, we can see that they're not perfectly aligned, so we could adjust the start points and the control points so that they line up, and then click refresh. Now they're more closely aligned. The next thing we notice is that there's no line from the final point to the first point. If we take a look at the AI waypoint, it has new route points. We can add new route points manually to this. We can assign the first point of the route to the final route point, and this will allow the route to loop. But instead of doing it manually, I'll use the spline route creator. It has an option called loop. I'll check that, click refresh. If I go back to that waypoint, we can see that it's referencing the first point in the route. So that automatically configures those references for us. We have some other options called desired route and that takes an index value, and we looked at the route index previously, and we also have a speed limit value. So every time a car hits one of these waypoints, it'll have its speed limit capped at whatever this value is. You'll want to make sure that you reduce the speed limit on curves, so that, especially sharp curves, so that the car doesn't go full speed into a wall. And then you might also notice that all of the waypoints on the first route are green. That represents the desired route index. So currently the AI cars are going to try to go to this route. All right, so let's take a look at the spline route creator and some additional settings that we can configure. So we also have an option for changing lanes. I'll enable that and click refresh. And that sets up all of the lane change points. If I click on one of these routes, we can see that we have an array for lane change points. And this particular route can change to 0.4 on route 1. Or it can change to 0.4 on route 3. Let's go back to the spline route creator, take a look at the target route and the speed limit. So let's zoom out a little bit. So we can see that currently only route number 1 is the target route. So let's go ahead and change that. If we picture ourselves as the driver, we know that we want to take the inside corner for just about every turn. So the target route should actually be route 5 all the way up until right around here, which the target route will slowly shift over back to route 1. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we can do that. If I expand the target route field and I select element 0, I can press tab to switch through these, and I press shift and tab to go backwards. I'll use this and press the number key of the route that I want. So I know that from right here, the target route should actually be 5. So I'm just going to select that route element and change it to 5. Now this is the target route. We could see that we're changing all of these waypoints just by tabbing through them. Press F, I could focus a little bit better and move my camera easier. So basically I want to hug the inside of this wall the entire way through. So I'm just going to continue to assign 5 and tab through everything. And I'm up to about waypoint 25. I'll continue to go. If I zoom in a little bit, I could see the waypoint numbers. We don't want the car to go over to that route yet, so we're going to go a little bit farther down. Right around here, I'll shift to route 4. Let me click one of those and focus on it, get a better perspective. And then switch back to the spline route creator, and I'm on route 0.43, so I'll select 42 actually. These are one number off because the indexes start at 0. So again, this will be 4, 4. Let's go over another one now, so this will be 3. And I'll go to 3 again, and then this next one will be 2, and that'll be 2. And you could change these however you want. Your racing line will be up to you. So we want the AI racers to be as close to this curve as possible. And then when they're coming out, they'll, around 0.65, they'll start shifting over for the next turn. I'll scroll down a little bit, and that'll actually be element 64. Let's actually go to 61. And from here, we'll put it at waypoint 2, 2, 2, and then we'll go to 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, and then we'll bring everybody over to 5. Right around here, we want to probably move over to 4 and use 4 all the way down. And now we are done configuring our target route. So the AI cars will always strive to go to that green waypoint, and you could adjust that however you see fit. The final thing to look at on the spline route creator is that there's also a speed limit array, and we could do the same thing that we did with our target routes. We could tab through these and set new speed limits for each. Now I know around here we're going to want to slow the cars down a lot because this is almost like we're basically having the cars do a full circle. So let's say around waypoint 70 to 82. We want to slow the cars down. I want to zoom in a little bit. Some of these points are a little close to the edge, so I'm going to actually select these waypoints and just move them over a little bit. I should have done this on the spline route creator, but I've already started editing it, so I don't want it to regenerate any of these points. I'm going to turn off the scene view light again just so I could see where these points are because it looks like I missed them. And I'm just going to grab some of these and move them over a little bit more. And that should actually be good enough. So if we switch back over to the spline route creator, a trick to collapse everything in the hierarchy, if you hold Alt and click on the upside down triangle, it'll collapse everything, and then release Alt and click it again. Now you'll have a nice clean collapsed hierarchy. 72 to about 84, I want to reduce the speed limit. For this turn, I know it needs to be about 60. I'm just going to set 60. And now if I select any of these waypoints, we can see that the speed limit is automatically adjusted. And that's about it. I think over here we might want to slow them down too for this turn. Let's do the same thing and just set a speed limit of 50. If I select the spline route creator, right around point, let's say 53, I want to slow them down, maybe even a little sooner. And then right around 63, they can start going fast again. Let's scroll over to 52. At this point, we've finished configuring all of the AI route settings. Just going to look over the points again and make sure all of them look pretty good. It does look like some of these are below the ground. I'm just going to raise them up. Point 33 and 34. Just pull those up on the y-axis a little bit. And everything else looks good. Okay, so at this point, we've finished configuring everything for the AI. Let's go ahead and save the scene. And now we could take a look at the racing system and the final changes we need to configure. If we expand the racing system and select the race manager, let's go ahead and press F so we could focus, get a better camera movement point. What we want to do next is spawn some waypoints and spawn points. To spawn the waypoints for the race, we'll hold down Shift and left click in the scene. I'll put one there, put one here, put one over here, one here, 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 and that should be good. Now I'll select these points, and I could press the W and T keys to switch between move and rotate. First thing I want to do is rotate, and then I'll switch back to move, put this right over the finish line. And then I'll do the same thing for all of the other points. Make sure we move them into position so that the AI cars will always hit them. And the final thing that we'll need to do is configure some spawn points for the race manager. And to do that, we'll hold Shift and right click wherever we want to place the spawn points. I'm going to place them right over waypoints, specifically on waypoint routes. I'll put one here and here. We have 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 8 spawn points. Now we have an error message in the race manager. And what it's basically pointing to is that we need to assign a starting AI route. If we zoom in a little bit, we know that route 1 is on the left, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this information that's showing up over the points, R stands for the route number. So route 1, 0.97, S is the speed of that waypoint, and T is the target. So this waypoint's target is actually 4, which is this waypoint over here, which is why it's green. Anyway, back to the spawn points. Select all of them, and we'll switch over to the rotate tool and just rotate them all. If yours are not rotating on the pivot, check this little box up here. You're probably rotating on the center. That way you can rotate them all on their pivot so they point forward. Now going back up to the race manager, for spawn point 1, we want to assign waypoint route 2. And spawn point 2 will be waypoint route 4. Spawn point 3 will be waypoint route 1. Spawn point 4 will be route 3. Point 5 will be route 5. And we have 6, 7, and 8. Point 6 is route 2. Point 7 is route 4. And point 8 is route 3. I'll save the scene. Now we have a new race scene that's fully configured. What you may want to do is hide the waypoint mesh. So you can just select all of the race waypoints and disable the mesh render so you don't see them. Next, we'll save the scene again. Let's hop over to the main menu scene. And what we'll take a look at here is the Quick Race canvas, the Arcade Series canvas, and the Championship Series canvas. Let's go ahead and press play just so we can see what they look like. So if we go to the Quick Race, this is the screen that gets enabled on the Quick Race canvas. We could toggle it on or off. And if we go back to the main menu, we could go to the Arcade Series canvas. We could see that screen gets enabled. Go back and go to the Championship canvas, and that screen gets enabled. So each of these screens is controlled by the script that's on the parent object of the prefab. So we'll start with the Quick Race. We take a look at the Quick Race screen script. We can see we have an array for race data. We can add a new race to this list by increasing the size. Let's say we want to make it 4, and then just dragging and dropping a new race data in there. So you can press Control D to duplicate these to create new race data. But what I'll do is I'll select race data 0, and I just want the first quick race to use my new quick race scene, which is called new race. So I'll change the scene name to new race. And there's a lot of other information that you could change here too. So you could change the name, the description, you could assign a new menu image, set the number of laps, the duration of the pre-race countdown timer. You can also define the number of racers by setting the size. For AI racers, you would just add their name and drop in the AI car prefab to that slot. And for the player, all you need to do is check the player box. You don't need to put a name because it'll use the saved name, but I type player in here so it doesn't say an element instead. You could resize this racer array and populate it with new data to control how many racers are in the scene and which spawn point they'll use. They're going to spawn in the order that they're listed here. If you wanted the player to spawn in first place, then you're going to replace him with the first element. Next, you could add prizes. So if you set the size to 3, element 0 is first prize, 1 is second prize, and 2 is third prize. I'm not going to put any prizes for this race. And then if we go to the minimap settings, you can either have the minimap be enabled or disabled, and you could have it be in a locked position, or it could rotate with the player. And you could also define the lock position and rotation values, and you could set the orthographic camera size here. If you want the race to be locked, you can enable the locked option, and you could set an unlock price. You can also toggle on or off the waypoint arrow or the wrong way warning, as well as the victory scene. There's a victory scene and a defeat scene. You can duplicate these two scenes. Select the canvas and focus on it. This is the defeat screen. You could customize this with your own graphics. You can make as many defeat and victory scenes as you want. For your race data, you would just enter the new scene name. Make sure that we add this new race to the build settings. Go to File, Build Settings, drag and drop our new race scene in here. And I want to change some of this information so it shows up different in the game. And let's just make it a 2-racer race. So for Brake Freak, I'll just change that to player. I'll enable the player option, and I could unassign the AI vehicle prefab. All right, let's go back to the main menu, and I'll press play. Now, I don't have an Android remote connected to my computer right now, so I can't actually drive. But what we can do is we can take a look at what the race looks like with the AI racers driving. We can see that we have new race, and our details here, 2 racers, 1 lap, and let's go ahead and select it. All right, so now we're loaded into our new race. Let's just pause it really quickly. What we can see, if we look in the hierarchy, is that the new race scene is loaded, and we only have our 2 racers loaded. And if we collapse new race and we expand the don't destroy unload, we can see the race data manager that was loaded, and we can see our race data that we configured is loaded into the scene with all of our custom settings. Let's go ahead and unpause it. I can't really drive too well because I only have a mouse, so I'm just gonna let the AI racer drive. And I'll switch over to the scene view so we could kind of watch him. And we could see that he's following the desired route. And he's slowing down when he gets to these waypoints. And then makes it to the end of the race, and he's finished. So let's actually just change the amount of racers. Let me change it to 3, find the prefabs, and I'll put the AI car in here, uncheck player, and I'll just give him a generic name. Change the size to 8. Now we have a bunch of AI racers with generic names. Press play. I'll select quick race. Now we can see the multiple racers attempt to get to the desired route. And there we go. That's how you configure a new race scene, and that's how you can use the race template scene to do that. The last thing that we'll take a look at before we end this video is the Arcade Series and Championship Series. They have series data fields. They take race data, just like the quick race canvas. So you'll populate the fields here with racer info, and this racer info field will be used instead of the racer data info field. And then you could define the amount of points that each racer will get for finishing, as well as the prizes for the final finish. And that's pretty much it.